Today in episode 65 of the podcast, we will be reviewing the new Jason Statham film, A Working Man, and we'll also be reviewing episodes 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again. We'll also have an exclusive clip from an upcoming film. But I'm Brad, he's Josh, and this is We'll Bring the Popcorn.
Yo, Working Man, yo.
Yo.
Daredevil, yo.
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 White Tiger. Yo.
Yeah.
Before we get started today, please like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Get notifications when the episodes launch every single week. If you listen to us in the audio realm, please give us a review on whichever audio platform that you listen to us on. It really helps us out a lot. You can also go to willbringthepopcorn.com to find an archive of all of our episodes, all of our social media accounts, and links to our merch store where we actually just dropped a few new merch items for you to check out. Thank you for your support.
So as we mentioned in the introduction to this episode, we have an exclusive look at Paul Rudd's next film. Please enjoy this clip and let us know in the comments and our social media what you think about it.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to that movie.
It's going to be a good one.
It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
So good.
So kicking off our news this week, we do have word from Netflix that they're working on a new live-action Scooby Doo series. So it's going to take place at a summer camp with a gang looking for a lost puppy that may have witnessed a supernatural murder. So, you know, the James Gunn written first two that had Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. and all of them. It's been quite a while since that came out, so it's interesting that we're revisiting a live-action Scooby-Doo now.
I'm not sure how I feel about this series, honestly. It worked in a sense back in the day when they did this original live-action film. I don't know how it's going to translate now. I think it's obviously going to be kid-oriented, probably, geared towards kids and whatnot, so interested to see who they actually cast for this series and, what it's going to look like. But the premise of it seems like it's going to be pretty solid. I'll check it out because, I love the old school Scooby Doo cartoons. The live action movies were decent to above average in my opinion, but I really don't know how to feel about this, like revisiting this. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it's actually been quite a while since we had these, first two, like you said, live action films and stuff. And they've had some, a couple other spin-off movies that they've done in special episodes and stuff like that since, but I just don't know how to feel about this.
I mean, it could be fun. You did have the Velma animated series, which was a lot more adult. That had some mixed reviews by people. Some enjoyed it. I think it just got canceled, or I think it only got like 2 seasons on it. But it'll be interesting if we see the original film cast show up as the camp counselors or something, just to have a little cameo in the series as they kick it off. But It could be fun, but it is going to be interesting what kind of tone. If they are going for kids, if they're going for more teen. Scooby-Doo's been around for such a long time, so we don't exactly know what kind of tone they're going for. But it could be fun if they can get it right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they shift the tone of that series, who they're really going to target that towards. But I want to move us into what's been the most talked about news story of the week. And we get this big announcement from Marvel where they roll these casting announcements out for, it felt like 24 hours straight. But they had this long live on Instagram and all their social medias where they, start rolling out these director's chairs with all of these actors' names on it. And we get, the first big major official casting announcement for Avengers Doomsday. This cast is absolutely stacked. You get, Paul Rudd back as Ant-Man. You finally get Simu Liu as Shang-Chi returning to the MCU. God, it feels like we've been asking for that for 17 years at this point. But I
loved on social media, he posted, pokes head out of karaoke bar.
Right. So he finally gets his return to the MCU here in this one. But I think some of the bigger ones of note, obviously the Fantastic Four are all confirmed for it. But the biggest one that had a lot of the internet talking is we're getting a ton of the original X-Men, Fox X-Men cast. So you get Sir Ian McKellen, you get Patrick Stewart, you get Rebecca Romijn, you get, James Marsden as Cyclops, and you get, Kelsey Grammer returning as Beast. Like, you get a bunch of these OG Fox X-Men characters, but we also get probably everybody's favorite quotable character from Deadpool and Wolverine. We get Channing Tatum returning as Gambit too. So, like, just a ton of people that got announced for this movie.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Channing Tatum immediately there because, there was talks that Marvel really loved what they did with Gambit and Deadpool and Wolverine, but we didn't expect so quickly, like, hey, he's among the first, about 40 names that are announced, but they're not quite done yet with all the announcements. But, yeah, and I can't remember if you said Alan Cumming is back as Nightcrawler, which was kind of big because he was, a lot of people loved what he did in X2, and he only showed up in that one and wasn't really ever seen again. But it's going to be really interesting. You got most of the Thunderbolts, which they may have spoiled a little bit of the movie, but they did say that they haven't gone through all of the announcements yet, so there's more names. I'm really curious about Tom Hiddleston being in it because at the end of Loki season 2, you're left with Loki in a very interesting place, and how that's going to kind of work in here. Is he just going to be overlooking and seeing exactly what's going on? It does feel like we're potentially setting up for Avengers Doomsday to be an Avengers versus X-Men film, potentially. Maybe Doom is in the background pulling the strings that gets these two groups to meet up, maybe in his universe. I want to see James Marsden in the 90s blue and yellow Cyclops uniform. Like, I want to see him full-blown Cyclops in there, and unless they just have everybody in the leather again, but I doubt they bring them back and do that, and then give me Rebecca Romijn in the white dress with the skull belt and everything else. Like, but yeah, you've got quite a lot. Like they said, they're not done yet, but you got Anthony Mackie as Captain America. You have his Falcon with Danny Ramirez is going to be Falcon in there. You've got just so much that's going to be happening. Like, it was 5.5 hours of chairbacks slowly scrolling through to announce all the Avengers cast. It was wild.
Yeah, and you have, like, integrations of almost every major MCU, like, entity in most of these. Like you said, Chris Hemsworth back as Thor again. Like, you've got that one. He was the first name, the first chair that they showed. You also have, from Black Panther, you have Letitia Wright coming back as Shuri and could potentially be as Black Panther, depending on, who you believe in that situation. But you got Winston Duke coming back as M'Baku. That
one I was really happy about. I love his M'Baku. That's one that if they didn't have Letitia be Black Panther, I really wanted him to take over the mantle because I think he had so much fun, but he did the drama and comedy in the first Black Panther, and I think he would have been fantastic as a Black Panther replacement if they didn't want to do T'Challa again or anything else. Like, going to M'Baku would have been a lot of fun. But I'm really excited to see what he does in this. If they're announcing all of these names, more than likely they're going to be more significant in the movie. So probably the second round of names that they announce could be more cameos and smaller stuff. I'm sure they're going to leave a few to be surprises, but there's several of these that you thought might have been surprises, like Channing Tatum's return as Gambit and everything. Did we get Anna Paquin returning as Rogue and get those two together, but actually give us a Rogue that's strong and powerful and has all her powers? I'd love that. You also get Tenoch Huerta returning as Namor as well from the last Black Panther film. But there's a lot of, now everybody's talking about, well, if you have all of these characters in there, it's going to lead obviously into Secret Wars, which is the follow-up Avengers film that's coming the following year. And if you look at some of the concept art that leaked online, there's talk of this potentially all being taking place on Battle World, which is, the stage for Secret Wars, which is crazy. But I think with the Doomsday thing, they've been kind of low-key hinting at it if you pay attention to some of the Easter eggs that they've put in some of the films, especially like Deadpool and Wolverine. There's a scene where he's going into the, into the void where he lands and there's this comic book next to him, and it's intentionally in the shot. If it's what Marvel does, they intentionally put little Easter eggs and little breadcrumbs in there. But they're alluding to like a storyline from, I want to say about 10 years ago that they did a Secret Wars storyline where it's like Doctor Doom's pulling all the strings and he's like, mind controlling all of these people to fight each other and setting up this Battle World thing. So I think that maybe the direction they're going with the story, which is very intriguing because you got, Dr. Doom pulling all these strings, controlling the minds of all these people. And that may lead to this Avengers versus X-Men fight that you're talking about, where you get all of these characters fighting each other. And, you're starting to see some
allusions to the Young Avengers too, that we don't even know what their involvement could or could not potentially be in this too, and maybe they're a key to, helping save everyone here in this situation. But I don't know. We're in the middle of a very exciting time for this. This got everybody buzzing about Doomsday and what this could potentially look like. But getting so many high profile actors in this film that just started production now, like the whole thing was to announce that the movie is in production. So this movie's coming next year. Everybody's chomping at the bit, and if you were on the fence whether or not to get back on the Marvel train, I think now's the time to do it.
Yeah, there were some notable ones that weren't announced because Tom Holland wasn't mentioned as returning as Spider-Man, because it could be really interesting. He is filming Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey through July, I believe, and then he has Spider-Man 4 to also film. And if it started production, it hasn't been rolling any film yet. They're still building sets and everything else, but they've got the main stuff going. But if we do end up seeing Spider-Man or Peter Parker in it, it could be a cameo or a small role, which a lot of people, you're bringing RDJ back as Doctor Doom. Well, you've set up that relationship and how it's broken and torn Peter to not have them together. I mean, you have the chance at Secret Wars, but Doomsday could really start that emotion. But we'll see if he ends up having potentially a small cameo talking to RDJ or something else that brings him in, because there's rumors that Spider-Man 4 takes place during the same time as Doomsday, so there potentially could be an explanation in the Spider-Man 4 of why he's not in Doomsday. But it's really interesting if they don't end up using the Spider-Man in Doomsday and he only shows up in Secret Wars because of his film schedule. But I mean, you also got Zendaya, who's in The Odyssey as well, so you've got two of them. Those two, I mean, I'm not saying she's not important to the story, but if you want to have someone from that realm in Doomsday, you're going to have Spider-Man show up. So be interested to see if he shows up. And we also didn't get Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman announced. Maybe there'll be smaller cameos. A lot of people have already talked in rumors, and they've kind of already said that they're going to be returning. So we expected to see him in Doomsday, but maybe they're waiting those for the second round, or if there'll be a special cameo within there.
You got to figure they're going to try to leave some surprises in there. They may not want the entire thing spoiled, although having that many people of that high profile in something, it's going to be almost impossible not to spoil a little bit or what have you. There's got to be some leaks at some point that come out of that. I'd like to avoid those if I could, just to, have the movie not spoiled for me. But it's the internet. You almost can't avoid it completely. But yeah, the other notable names that didn't show up in the announcements. You didn't see anything about Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange.
And he announced that he was going to be in Avengers Doomsday already.
Yeah, but he wasn't on the official announcement. You know what his involvement's going to be. Anybody involved with Doctor Strange, really, we got word that Elizabeth Olsen kind of came out and said that she's kind of done with Scarlet Witch for now, so it doesn't seem like there's going to be a return of her, but there was no mention of Paul Bettany as Vision, because we know we got the Vision Quest series coming up as well. You've got no mention of some of those other people attached to Doctor Strange, like, America Chavez, who was a big part of Multiverse of Madness. No mention of her, where she's going to be in. No mention of Wong,
no Marvels, so no Captain Marvel, no Miss Marvel.
None of those people are involved, which kind of leaves you shaking your head. No mentions of any of the Guardians either. I know they've kind of ventured out and done their own thing, but them at least being tied to Chris Hemsworth and Thor, you got to wonder if we see any of the remaining Guardians. No Chris Pratt, no Rocket, no Groot, no Mantis, or any of those people. Obviously, Dave Bautista said he's kind of done playing Drax, so we don't know if they're going completely away from Guardians or not. But we'll see what if any appearances they have in that as well. But you've got two huge Avengers movies coming up, obviously, that just got the whole internet talking this week.
So our next story is a little bit sad for us, because we've talked about it a few times now that Cincinnati was in the running for the Sundance Film Festival. They finally announced they are moving, but it's not coming here to Cincinnati. It's going to Boulder, Colorado in 2027, which, there was a little talk about they want something that's charming and more. And Cincinnati has its charm. It has that Art Deco architecture and everything else, but they stayed in kind of a ski area that they've been in with Park City and everything in Utah. So seemingly they wanted to keep with that aesthetic and everything else. So they're not coming here, but they do have a new home.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. I know there was a big push from the city here to try to get that major film festival here, and it would have been amazing and an incredible opportunity for them here. But I get why they're kind of keeping it semi-close. They're moving from Utah to Colorado. It's not that far of a geographical jump for them. I'm sure money and financials had something to do with it. I'm sure they put a nice investment into things to get things over there. It's just a little disappointing for us. We were hoping to get that here because, we talk a lot about how like a lot of films wind up just skipping this area or they only go into select theaters. Like you have to really go out of your way to see some of these movies that, it speaks to a bigger issue with the movie industry in general, but getting a festival like that here where we would get opportunities to see some of these films that may not go to one of our major chains around here, it's a little disappointing because as, big fans of film as we are, like we were hoping to get that opportunity to lead into more movies being made here, which it feels like there have been, at least in the last few years, but also that opportunity to see movies we might not otherwise get a chance to until it shows up on a streaming service because film, like a lot of the indie films and the, some of the quote unquote lower budget, movies that get made, that get a lot of, praise at these festivals, like just don't come to our local theaters. And it's disappointing. Like, you almost have to really go out of your way to find the one theater in like a 50-mile radius that might show it like 2 times a week or something, and it's a little disappointing. But, at the end of the day, they didn't pick our area and, it is what it is. But it's unfortunate because we were hoping it would come here.
And we will never talk about him again.
Never. Sundance is dead to us.
Shame.
So for our final news story of the week, we wanted to talk about, a story that broke from Nintendo this week. They're announcing a live-action Legend of Zelda film that's going to come out in March of 2027. This is an interesting timing for that because it's coming out around the same time as the rumored release date for the next Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which is a very interesting movie to go up against considering all the money that it makes. But this has got a lot of people talking as well. Legend of Zelda, if you take away Mario, Zelda is unquestionably Nintendo's second biggest property. So them trying to adapt a live action film has got a lot of people both happy and terrified at what could potentially be coming from a live action Legend of Zelda film.
Releasing a week after Sonic the Hedgehog 4, I think this confirms the Smash Brothers movie.
Why not? Give us what we want, right? But yeah, I mean, this has got potential to be great, but you know how we feel about video game adaptations. We've gotten better video game movies in recent years. Obviously, with the success of Sonic, the Super Mario Brothers movie, while animated, still did a ton of money as well. But when you start getting into live action stuff and either mixing live action and animation, kind of like what Sonic does, they found a good formula for it. But when you start getting into live action video game films, it's the percentages of high quality films drastically decreases.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because Link, our main hero in the Legend of Zelda series, doesn't talk. I mean, they did the animated series back in the 90s that everyone probably remembers. Well, excuse me, princess. That line that sticks out because it was so bad of the dialogue they gave Link. Is Link going to be mute throughout the entire movie, or is he going to actually speak? We've got the director who did the last Planet of the Apes film is directing it. He says he knows the gravitas of what he's having to do and trying to do with the Legend of Zelda movie. But it is kind of odd that after the big success that's the Super Mario Brothers movie saw being animated, that instead of doing an animated Legend of Zelda film to follow up, they're going live action with it.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, there's so many instances of this stuff going live action that don't work, that has just a lot of people concerned. Like you said, the fact that Link doesn't really talk in the games. You've got a good quality director in, the director of the Legend of the Planet of the Apes and stuff. Like, you can go back in archives and see how we felt about that film. Like, we enjoyed those movies, but this is a very, very popular franchise that if you don't hit on the quality of this, that's going to do possibly irreparable damage. Like, the people that make the movie may not recover. There's a lot of pressure around the film is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a very, very popular, obviously with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdoms being two of the, best reviewed, highest selling video games of all time here recently for Nintendo. Like, all eyes are on them to get this right with this Zelda film. And, the jury's still out. We'll obviously give it a chance, but there's a lot of people rightfully so terrified that they're going live action with this and what it could entail and what kind of quality movie we're going to get.
And you got the Nintendo Switch 2 out this year. We don't have a release date. That's actually when this episode drops. It'll be this week that we have the announcement from Nintendo, the full reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. So they've got a lot riding on it. So that's going to be almost a year later after the release of this console to launch a brand new movie. So it's going to be really interesting. It's Legend of Zelda could be a really good fantasy film if they do it right, but it's everyone's got the hesitations. Nobody in the game speak other than the fairy who yells at Link. That's about the only dialogue you've ever gotten in a video game and stuff. And you get Zelda with a little noises here and there, but no one speaks. And It's been every single game, specifically, Link doesn't speak. So that's going to be the biggest thing. If they have him talk, they've got to get the right actor who can do the right voice and who can make him sound believable. And because all the sounds that you hear of him attacking is kind of very high pitched. So how are you going to match a voice to those sounds of the game to make it like, all right, this is Link?
Yeah, it's just the jury's out. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully, we'll have casting news soon. If they already have a release date planned, maybe they have casting set and we just haven't heard anything about it. We just don't know yet. But yeah, like this one, I don't know. Like you said, when you don't get me wrong, there's a ton of like amazing lore in these games that they can explore from a fantasy storytelling perspective, but you're gonna get a lot of people criticizing, good or bad. Like when you start to reveal stuff from this movie and the approach you're gonna have just from dialogue and like what kind of dialogue are you gonna have in this? Like when a character doesn't really speak, there's.
Make him sound like Aragorn. Just have Vigo do a voiceover.
I would love it. I would love nothing more. Like he's kind of the same character in a lot of ways. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this one.
So moving on into our film review this week, we did see the latest from David Ayer and Jason Statham in A Working Man. Of course, last year we had The Beekeeper from him. These two working together have been a callback to kind of the classic 80s action films that are kind of a little mindless, has some good action, but the story kind of leaves you wanting a little bit more. I think I enjoyed this one a little bit more than The Beekeeper, but they both kind of are heavily cliched. Like, this is yet again, Jason Statham has changed careers now. So from being a beekeeper in the last one, now he's a construction worker, but he's still an ex-military guy who has training to be able to take out the Russian mafia and a biker gang and anything that comes in his way. It's the indestructible hero film that, that we've seen a lot. There's so many I enjoy from the 80s and 90s and 70s that we got, especially with Delta Force and everything with Chuck Norris, and then all the Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and just all of our action heroes from that time. But it was okay. It wasn't a great film. It was just so cliched of what he could do. There's some bad acting. There was a lot of henchmen who just like, hey, I've got a really big gun. I'm just going to aim it at somebody instead of just firing wildly and randomly around the room. You have the biggest gun around that could probably penetrate any wall, and you're just shooting at the ceiling when the guy's to your left.
It's the old classic stormtrooper aiming, trope that, the bad guys have the worst aim in history unless you're like this incredibly skilled marksman that, they try to hire. But yeah, it's your classic, like you said, indestructible hero story where he's not going to die in the movie, but he overcomes most of the most absurd set of circumstances that even the best of heroes couldn't overcome in a real situation. But that's not the point of these movies, right? The point of these movies is to just, I love to call them turn your brain off and relax and just enjoy it kind of film. But it gives us that. This is your classic stereotypical Jason Statham movie. He's the guy doing a regular job that gets called to help because, the guy that he's working for's daughter gets kidnapped by people, and they try to convince him to go save him because at the beginning of the film, you see him fighting off a couple gangsters that try to attack one of his coworkers. Like, he's kind of like the foreman of the crew. So he sees one of his guys, getting kind of shook down by some people that he probably owes money to. I believe that's what he was. Like, they wanted some money from him and show up at the job site and try to shake him down there, and he fights them off, and they see that, and they're like, oh, you're ex-military, like, oh, like, you've got special training, like, we need you to go save our daughter. And, in classic Jason Statham fashion, he's like, I can't do it, man. I'm out of the game. This isn't me anymore. But he forms this, bond with the daughter that he said he'd have her back. So for reasons, he decides to go through and do it.
Yeah, because he said no, didn't want to take their money, and then immediately went to his old military friend Gunny, played by David Harbour, and asking him how he should go about doing it. Like,
you just told him no.
You just told him no.
But 5 minutes ago, you told the daughter you had her back always.
You had the, of course, set up like, all right, just have my back when I need it. Foreshadowing.
It's a little absurd, but like thin motivations aside, like when you get into this film, you get Jason Statham being Jason Statham. He's probably one of the top 2 or 3 of this generation as far as action movie stars. I'd put him probably at 1 of all the modern ones, because he's the one kind of really carrying that banner right now of this indestructible hero type movie. That you see a Jason Statham movie, I'm gonna go see it, because if you've seen one, you've seen them all, but they're a ton of fun. Like you're not going for a deep, meaningful plot in this film. You're going to see Jason Statham kick the crap out of the bad guys, and guess what? You get that in spades here. He finds creative ways to, get the information he needs to go like find this girl. Like, eating a bagel, or, just throwing around a cup of coffee or a pot of coffee at somebody. But you get all the stuff you want in these types of movies, and they know their lane, and they do a good job of staying in their lane and giving us that type of film. And, for that reason, it works for, the story that they're trying to tell here.
And it is a note that Sylvester Stallone did write this story with David Ayer and stuff, so I was surprised to see his name, because they didn't. If you have a name like Stallone or something, even still to this day, especially with an action film, I don't think any of the trailers ever mentioned that he had anything to do with this film, and they say, all right, co-written by Sylvester Stallone and David Ayer. But yeah, it's the plot is serviceable overall. He's working. The daughter gets kidnapped after wanting $2,000 from her parents to go celebrate that she finished her first semester at college. Like every kid does, spend $2,000 after one semester. And they question, it's been one semester. Like, okay, just give her what she wants. Okay, because you got Michael Pena, who we've mainly seen do comedic stuff, and he's more serious. Like he's not really doing anything funny. He's crying. He's emotional. He's trying to do something serious in it. But there was a subplot around Jason Statham's family. So he has a daughter. The wife has passed away from different. They go in a little bit about the circumstances stuff, but the grandfather, the dad of his wife, doesn't like him, blames him for the death and stuff. So it sets up this subplot with the daughter, with the grandfather and stuff, but it didn't really matter to the film in the end. It was just supposed to give you a little emotional tug. Oh, he's got a little girl that he's trying to protect and stuff, but he's fighting the Russian mafia and bikers and stuff, and picks her up from school and then takes her somewhere, and like, you're in the middle of a war with Russian mob people, and you're picking your daughter up from school. Like, it's got that kind of ludicrous stuff, dude. You said you've just got to turn your brain off to the logic in this film and just watch it for the action and the crazy over the top. Because I even caught myself trying to look at towards the end of the film. Most of it takes place at night, and they're outside. The moon is the size of the Empire State Building. The moon was, I don't know if you paid attention to it.
Hilarious.
The moon was gigantically huge. Like, you could fit like 50 Jason Stathams in the moon that was being shown in the background of it. Like, you could tell that was just like a backdrop screen with a light behind it. But I mean, the moon was gigantic.
The way I could easily describe this, if you've ever seen the film Bruce Almighty, where Jim Carrey just with the powers of God throws an imaginary rope around the moon and pulls it closer to the earth, and it's absurdly large in that scene with Jennifer Aniston. That's kind of the equivalent of what the moon looked like in this. Because I was hoping, if you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to.
It was a little distracting. Like, wait,
moon. It's distractingly in the shot.
It literally takes up 95% of the screen when they're showing it.
It's absurd, but it's fun because it just fits the backdrop of what they're doing. But yeah, the comically oversized moon aside, it hits all the things you want. Like you said, they give you a little bit of the backstory of, he doesn't have custody of his daughter because of his military background and some of the things he probably did that made him like more of a violence risk. And he doesn't have custody of her. The grandfather does. And he's kind of
2 hours a week or something.
Yeah. He gets very minimal time with his daughter, which is absurd given that, you see how good of a guy he is, or whatever. And, there's that whole situation, but Yeah, it leads a little bit of extra emotional oomph to the story if you need it. It didn't really need it, but
It tried, but it didn't really.
yeah, it
add
didn't really
anything
land, I
to
think, the
me.
way they intended it to. But you get the charming moments with the daughter. David Harbour is a lot of fun in this movie for what little you do get to see of him in it. But he plays his blind, former military friend and whatnot, and they have some good dialogue back and forth, little fun banter between them. But yeah, like at the end of the day, you get your classic Jason Statham film where he just goes and he just kicks everyone's butt and saves the day, and that's kind of the film you get out of this. And if that's the kind of thing that you're into, you get it in spades here. Like it's another one of those. I agree. I liked it probably a little bit better than Beekeeper. We like Beekeeper. Go back in your archives and
Yeah, the only
check
thing
that
that
out,
with
but-
Beekeeper over this one that got me was because of Beekeeper in the end, he's dealing with the president and he ends up going to
That's
this
absurd.
island party that they're throwing and he's able to sneak in, like come up on the beach. Like if you were portraying this more realistic of a president, like you're gonna have every entrance to this island completely locked down. He just walks right in.
Oh, it's absurd.
Pretends to be, he just does whatever he wants and some ludicrous fights, but he just does whatever he wants. And that took me out a little bit, but again, it's at that ridiculous over the top action film.
Yeah, for sure. But in this one, it's a lot more straightforward in the sense that he's going. And the other thing that I know just laughs in the face of other tropes is when, getting a little bit of the spoiler of the plot of the film here, but is when he tries to get close to I don't know if you call it the intermediate, the leader, like this Dio guy that he tries to get to. Demi, and he goes to buy drugs for some reason to get into business with these guys or whatever. Like he uses some of this money that he's saved that he apparently has got more money than we
Where did all the
originally
money?
thought,
Did he take the
he
money?
said he saved up like 10 grand for his. We're getting into the plot of the film with it, like leaving a lot of things out. Like he's trying to get custody of his kids, and he said he saved up like 10 grand to throw at the lawyer to fight his case for him. But all of a sudden, he magically now has like $5,000 more to, get a hold of some drugs that he's saying he wants to distribute and get in there. Like I was like, where did he find this money? Like where did this money come from?
And after buying drugs one time, he's introduced to the head honcho of the entire drug business for the Russian mafia. Like,
because he earns the respect of the middleman in another absurd fight at a biker bar, who's another former military guy. He's like, well, if you're serious about this, I gotta introduce you to the guy.
with the
Like,
Game of Thrones biker seat.
so funny. Like I said, there's so many like absurd things that they throw in here. And it's so unrealistic in ways, but you know what? You're having a good time in this movie, so you kind of just leave all of that logic and stuff at the wayside when you're dealing with stuff like this.
Yeah, so in the end, Working Man is a ridiculous, over-the-top Jason Statham action film. You know what you're getting going in. You're not there for the plot. You're there just to have a fun time with the action, and it delivers for the most part. There's some stuff that's hard to look past when it does, but it was enjoyable to an extent. I'm probably going to give it a 6. Like that's lower, but like. For some reason, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando popped in my head a lot with this film, and that's a guilty pleasure that I love to go back to. That film is like a 3 to me, but I've seen it 15, 20 times because it's so ridiculous and over the, throwing the pipe through the guy and all the lines, and he comes up on the beach and he's just putting on everything that he needs right there on the beach of the compound, and like everything was ridiculous in that, but I think most of our 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s action films like that with that indestructible hero are going to be pretty lower on the score. They're not going for a plot that's going to fully engage you. It's something there that's to set up the action, and it does enough to get some enjoyment out of you, turn your brain off and go in and just have some fun with the action.
Yeah, I was going to give it about a 6.5 myself just because of they know how to do the action right. Like the fights are fun. Like they really are. Like when you get into him just getting in these fights with, the biker gang and the Russian mafia and like a lot of the absurd over the top fighting, that elevates a score for me just because of the what you're doing and you know what you're getting from it, and they do it well. They do that part of it really well. The dialogue is terrible in most of the film. Like that's going to drag it way down, obviously, and the plot is as paper thin as it can be, but it's coherent enough that you can follow along and it makes sense, right? So that keeps it at a semi-respectable level. The action would keep it the quality of the action in the movie keeps it at a higher score for me. Just
the action would
because,
bring it down a lot if it wasn't as good as it was.
right? Yeah, if you take that part out of it, it's not the best of films, but it is your classic, like you said, stereotypical Jason Statham film. You know what you're getting from him in the leading man role. You get this on full display in all of its glory here. So don't get me wrong, calling it a 6.5, it's a fun movie. Like, I know we're a little more favorable on our reviews for a lot of films than a lot of other people maybe, but we're here to be entertained. This movie was entertaining. I will give it that. It's a little under 2 hours, so it's kind of a brisk, clean movie to get through fairly easily. But if you go in expecting like a classic Jason Statham film, this is one you want to check out for sure.
I had to laugh because it popped back up in my head that he's got several times in the film where he's staking out these guys to try to figure stuff out. And one of the last times, he is staking out this biker bar, and he is literally parked in a gigantic truck.
Yeah.
With one small thin bush between the truck and the
Yeah,
biker
not
bar.
inconspicuous at
He's
all.
10 feet away from the building, sitting, and they're looking at him through thermal stuff, and like, you're hiding behind a single bush and you don't expect to be seen.
It's absurd. Yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot of logic that gets thrown out of the window. The villains in this movie are dumb. They are just dumb. They try to portray themselves as smart, tough guys. They're dumb. Like,
Very typical portrayal of Russian guys.
Very much so.
Having very smarts, wearing the like
Absurd
velour
outfits.
jumpsuits and
Yeah.
tracksuits and stuff. But yeah, they're dumb.
Yeah, that's definitely one that, if you want to go and have a good time and turn your brain off and just enjoy a good action movie, that's a ton of fun. You could just get some entertainment for a couple hours. This is definitely one to check out.
And so Working Man is in theaters now. If you go check it out, come to our comments, come to our social, let us know what you thought about it. We'll have some fun talking about it. Again, it's not the best movie, but if you can turn your brain off, you can have a decent amount of fun with the action.
Yeah, for sure. Now I want to move us into our TV review of the week. We have episodes 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again. We're along for this journey now. We're getting past the halfway point now here in the season, that is. You get 5 and 6, a double episode drop. I gotta tell you, this is probably, for me, my 2 favorite episodes of the season so far. I really feel like they're hitting their stride with these 2 episodes, and you finally get us by the end of this point where, we get literally the 2 versions of Matt Murdock in their fullest, not quite lawyery, but Matt Murdock as his best version of Matt Murdock, and also you finally get him back in the Daredevil suit, so we can kind of start going into each episode here. But overall, I'm really excited for the direction that the show is going, and these last 2 episodes were absolutely fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them. So, like, if you go on the surface level, they're not really connected to each other as we thought. Like, it would be one story moving to the other, because one is about Matt getting a loan. We don't know if it's for the business or for the law firm or if it's for him. I mean, they kind of touch like it might have been for the law firm that they were looking for and stuff, but it's at a bank and it's being robbed while he's there, and the other one is dealing with Muse. But it's the undertones that you're dealing with that connects them, because Matt is learning in the episode 5 at the bank of just how important and how much Daredevil is a part of him, because, he goes in for this bank loan and he's talking to Yusuf, who is Kamala Khan's dad. So this is where we get that cameo we've known that's been coming, that it's her dad that's going to be talking to him about the bank loan. He's the assistant manager of the branch there, and he's just going on, and he talks about Kamala, that she's out in California right now, which maybe we see something from that, because we have Karen out in California right now in the show, so we don't really know.
But there's also a miniature superhero whose daughter very much could be involved with what Kamala is trying to put together, that is also located out in California, if you catch my drift, who is supposedly going to be a part of this Young Avengers crew as well. So that's something to kind of wink and a nod if you're in the know with all the stuff going on with Marvel. She could be out there doing a little bit of recruiting. So it's fun to get that reference of Miss Marvel.
I just said that Yusuf knows that Matt is blind, and he holds up a bobblehead of Kamala as Miss Marvel, and you've got Matt like, come on. Like, I can't see what you're holding. I was like, oh, yeah. But that was kind of a fun exchange because you've got those worlds colliding now. He eventually invites him over to dinner with the family and stuff they're talking about. So we potentially do have a meetup that's going to happen between Kamala and Matt and stuff. Awesome. But, the rest of the episode does revolve around Yusuf and Matt and what's going on with this bank robbery.
Yeah, so, you get you get what's ultimately like they deny Matt's request for this financial assistance for the law firm, but
it popped in my head right now, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Anchorman, when he says the Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Well, Daredevil was denied a bank loan. It's
just
popped in my head immediately.
You're absolutely right, but you get Matt leaving the bank and kind of joining off to continue his day, but through his abilities and his ability to have superhuman hearing, he hears the bank robbers enter that same bank. So he decides to go back to the bank to kind of help these people out, because he does kind of form a little bit of a bond with Yusuf there in their interactions and the conversation that they have. So he jumps back in, and he can't leave well enough alone as Matt Murdock. He has to. There's still that, and that's the undertones that you're talking about. There's that willingness in him to help, and he started to dip his toe back into the Daredevil waters a little bit. Where
I shouldn't be doing this, but I have to.
Right.
It's just part of me.
Yeah. So you get, what's essentially this episode here where, you get these guys looking for a safe deposit box for what ultimately winds up being this precious stone, this gemstone that they're looking for, but they're there to rob the bank. They take people hostage. They were looking for the branch manager, who notoriously wasn't there, so that leaves Yusuf, who is the assistant manager, to open the vault. Well, unbeknownst to the robbers, Yusuf doesn't know how to actually unlock the vault, because only the branch manager apparently knows the way to get in this, which I get. I'm not exactly sure how banks operate, but I wonder if it's more than just one person who knows how to open the vault there. But in talking to Matt's, very much in his Daredevil, frame of mind here. It tells him to stall because, he's going to try to help diffuse this situation here. But you get a lot of now Matt trying to be Daredevil without the costume, kind of like, he's going to try to isolate these guys and take them out. And he starts to do that a little bit here. And, it's a real fun, journey that we go on in this bank robbery for sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first guy he takes out. He's kind of being led to the bathroom and led out, and they're going down a stairwell, and Matt starts fighting him, and it's a good fight, but you also got the shotgun is teetering over the edge of this spiral staircase, and he slides down the stairs and grabs the shotgun and then chokes the guy out to be able to take him out, then shows up to Yusuf. But that was I know, and you said it as well, one of our favorite scenes after Matt shows up to save Yusuf and knocks out that guy, and he's going up to the bank vault. He's like, this is just going on how complicated the vault is. You're not going to be able to open it. And Matt's just using his super hearing to sit there and listens, and it opens up, and Yusuf, that's still having conversation with him, say, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I'm a really good lawyer."
Really good. He's a really good lawyer.
He brought up that line.
Favorite line.
Of course, that was what he said when he showed up with Peter Parker in this last Spider-Man movie, caught the brick. Like, he brought that line back. I'm a really good lawyer.
A really good lawyer. That made me laugh. That was definitely fun. But yeah, you get this whole episode, you get some interesting dialogue between the bank robber and
that was the only part that was a little iffy.
Yeah, the bank robber and the hostage negotiator, where he's trying to make it seem like he's in control. The whole thing was like, make them feel like they're in control when they're not really in control of the situation. Like,
I'll give you another hostage if you tell me a joke.
Right. There was a little bit of weird stuff in there, but this episode was really very much about Matt still fighting his, like, doing a little bit less fighting of his urge to return as Daredevil, and just realizing day by day that he has to play both. Like, he can't turn one completely off of the other, and I think he's finally coming to that coming to terms with it and being at peace with it, especially given what happens with Foggy, and it kind of bleeds over into the next episode. But
I'd say that final battle of episode 5 was brutal, because the main bank robber gets away, switches into a police uniform, and he goes out, and we find out he hadn't accomplished and stuff. But Matt, taking one of the red masks from one of the other robbers tracks him down in an alleyway and he beats him, and the guy is like just leaning up against a wall, and he leaps in the air and lands on his knee and snaps his leg in half. I'm like, okay, yeah, Matt's back as Daredevil. Like, he went full on brutal. I'm gonna snap your leg in half and not give a crap about it.
Yeah, he was a little rusty at first, and then like it was just kind of like riding a bike for him, right? Because he struggled a little bit in some of his earlier ones. One of the cool things, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it's Marvel, so nothing's not intentional. But if you notice the color of the masks that all of the bank robbers are wearing, and then the gemstone that they did find were pretty much the colors of the Infinity Stones. I don't know if you paid attention.
Like I said, it's a diamond, but it was a reddish orange diamond that
looked
they
a little
had,
bit like the Soul Stone.
Yeah, you had green, and you had yellow, and you had red, and everything.
Yeah, there were some people online pointing that out too, and I was like, that definitely could not be unintentional. A little bit of a MCU wink and a nod to people that pay attention to that sort of thing. But yeah, you get to the end of this episode, and you get Matt or Yusuf inviting Matt to dinner out to Jersey City to, visit the Khan family for dinner, and he wanted to make sure that Kamala was going to be there to, be a part of that, and
a fun little joke that we think the robbers, a woman who was helping him, got away with the diamond, and she opens up the bag and it's a piece of candy, and then Yusuf, after Matt leaves, is looking in the candy jar and is like, oh, there's the diamond.
It was fun because it was one of those things that's kind of endearing about the Khan family and how much they care about each other and care about people. Yusuf, knowing that Matt's blind, like he holds up the jar of the bowl of candy to offer to him, and he just kind of rummages through it to make a little sound like, here's the candy if you want some. And then that's where he leaves the jewel for him at the end and actually tries a piece of the candy and takes it with him. It was a fun little like full circle moment that we get in that episode. But yeah, that was this episode 5 was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed, the overall story. The cop stuff in the middle of it was just kind of like a little bit of filler in the episode, but it was a good avenue to get Matt back into the fold of, being more of the Daredevil persona and him coming to peace with it, because that really leads into the meat of episode 6, which is our next episode. And this one is a very action heavy, but very heavy, both Matt and Wilson Fisk in this episode. Very heavy for both of them.
Yeah, this is very heavy about Muse. So we get to find out that Muse has been, we get a little bit that Wilson Fisk is trying to get these murals, especially the ones that depict him, erased, but we find out, and I believe the sanitation worker is the guy from the bank in episode 5 as well. So we got him telling Fisk, like, we can't get rid of these murals because it's not paint, it's blood. And so we find out Muse has been painting all of these murals and paintings all over the city, which was done by artist David Mack, who, worked on the other Netflix series and stuff. Incredible artist, does a lot of watercolor stuff, has his Kabuki line of comics and everything else. He's a fantastic artist. Go check him out. But they brought him back with continuity because, like in the Jessica Jones show, he did a lot of the paintings and stuff that was done in there. And I think also some of the intros helped with the art for the intro. So we get to see David Mack's art all over the walls from Muse that, we find out Muse has probably got at least 60 plus victims that he's done. And we get to see some brutal, like we even get 2 women who come up to him in the alleyway while he's painting his next mural. And they're like, hey, are you Muse? Can we get a photo? And then 5 minutes later, they're dead with their eyes removed and bleeding out, and he's got more blood. Like, it gets very gruesome. And then I think they did a fantastic job of portraying a kind of a stranger, dark character in Muse. Like, the suit looked fantastic, but dealing with the darkness of his character, I think they handled it really well.
Yeah, and this is one of the big reasons why I'm thankful that they kept the show as a mature rating, because I know a lot of the big fear was, okay, they're getting owned by Disney, are they going to Disney it down? But I think here recently they've been less afraid of taking that risk with their stories and allowing them to be mature, because it works. Like, I couldn't imagine a watered down version of Muse. Like, when I heard they were going to use Muse, I was like, if you know anything about the dark story, he's one of the darker, more violent villains in Marvel Comics. Like, he's very, it's very adult and very mature. So the fact that they're keeping the show mature with not just the language, but the violence and the, the themes and everything, like, getting a character like this into the show was a really good get for them. Like you said, the suit that the comic accurate, like, this is what you want in a comic accurate suit. Good. To a T, the comic version of the suit, and it looks incredible. And yeah, this guy's just, you don't really know why he's doing what he's doing, but he's very unapologetically brutal and, takes no prisoners kind of thing. Like
He will kill anybody.
Yeah, like there's no, and it doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to it. And that's what I think makes him more terrifying and more dangerous is there's no real, like, I'm not targeting certain people or certain groups or certain things. It's just, if you're in my way, you're going to get got kind of thing. And that's what makes him a little bit more terrifying. But you get, now moving forward in the episode, you get, White Tiger's niece showing back up at Matt's, law firm, trying to get him on board with, taking out the people that are responsible for, killing her uncle. And, Matt's still kind of not fully invested back into being that Daredevil and doing it. Like, he's like, I just can't do it. And there was a very interesting like back and forth with her, and a lot of people are now, and I think everybody's getting on board with the fact that she's going to be the next White Tiger, and probably another nod to the Young Avengers. She's probably going to be a part of that group there. Where she's the next person to take up the White Tiger mantle. If you know anything about the comics, Angela is very much White Tiger in versions of those comics.
And kudos to that actress; she did fantastic
Amazing.
in that scene, doing emotion, just appealing to Matt and stuff. She just nailed that scene.
Yeah, a fantastic interaction. I don't want to like just do anything to take away from the dialogue that they have by butchering and not remembering exactly what they talked about. But it was a very powerful scene with, between the two of them, where he's like, I think that may have finally snapped him back fully into like, okay, I have to be back and doing what needs to be done here. Like, somebody's got to help, and it's got to be me, kind of thing. But you get these interesting stories. You get Wilson Fisk here very heavily in this episode as well, where he's trying to get, I want to say do the right things like for his agenda, but do them the right way without strong-arming his way through like he always does. And, he's trying to play the diplomatic role, and he's got Vanessa helping him, and he goes to this fancy meeting where we get an appearance from a character from another show as well that he winds up talking to in the little bit of interaction they have at a dinner party.
Yeah, we get the swordsman showing up who appeared in Hawkeye, and so we got him coming back. We got a little bit of a clip of him earlier in the episode of him fencing and fighting people, but we get him face-to-face with Wilson Fisk and talking to him and stuff as well. So there's a lot still building with Wilson, and we'll talk about that more at the very end. But that was kind of interesting because him and Vanessa have a moment sitting on the bed talking about exactly what this... to the fundraiser that he's trying to get money out of the big wigs in New York. And it's not going exactly smooth because it cuts back and forth between him talking to Vanessa at home and what's going on at the fundraiser and stuff. And he ends up having to duck out early because he gets, word that something's going on. And I can't remember. I don't think we really got what that was, because the next time we see Fisk is him coming down the stairs with something in his hand. But I did want to touch on, like, there is a lot of heavy emotion this episode because we do get Matt kind of finally dealing with Foggy. Yeah. He's sitting on his bed he's got the pamphlet from his funeral that has Braille for him on it, and he's basically praying, and he's going back through his mind of everything that happened with Foggy and all the fights that he's been in since
dealing with it.
Foggy died, and going back to Bullseye, and he's like starting to work his way through it. Like, Heather comes in, and he's just saying that he prayed, but into exactly what he was going through. But he's still guarded. Like, you see that he cares about her and that their relationship is kind of moving forward into different ways, but he's still guarded in that aspect. Like, he's still not fully, Frank got him wanting to move forward with it, finally got him talking, but he's just not fully ready to deal with it. But we got a good movement forward with him, sitting there on the bed, thinking about it and trying to just remember Foggy.
Yeah, so you get a really interesting conversation between Matt and Heather here where, it comes to find out that Heather's writing a book, and spoiler alert, her book's about vigilantes. So, she works as a psychiatrist, and, now she's working on this book where she's kind of getting inside the minds of vigilantes, and Matt, just kind of tries to laugh and brush it off like, hey, you need any advice? Come talk to me about it. Like, obviously not guarding the fact of who he actually is. And, she was like, well, you've represented some of these people, right? Which where she's trying to get to, because he has a very high, Well, one very high profile, still alive vigilante that he's worked with, if you pay attention to the Netflix series, and Matt, in a very funny moment, and it made me like laugh out loud, where Matt just like bursts out into laughter. And he's like, "You want me to get you an interview with the Punisher? You want to talk to Frank Castle? You want to talk to that guy of all people?" And she was like, "Well, that'd be great. That'd be awesome." And Matt's
like, "Hey, you know the Daredevil too,
yeah,
right?"
Yeah, and she's like, "Daredevil too. You've interacted with him before." And he's like, "Maybe that's going to be a very interesting thread moving forward the rest of the season, because now she's going to start poking around with vigilantes and stuff. And how is that going to come to a head at some point? Because it's going to. Obviously, she's with these shows, it's going to go one of two ways. She's either going to find out that he's Daredevil, or she's going to meet a very grim fate in the show. So we'll see how that works out for her. But yeah, it was a very interesting conversation, and we'll see where that goes moving forward the rest of the season for sure.
Yeah, so the rest of the episode kind of revolves around Angela. She left the meeting with Matt pretty upset because Matt didn't want to do anything. So she ends up going down into the subway tunnels that she told Matt about to try to look for Muse. So this is a little girl without the amulet, without anything. She goes down into it, and Muse does end up capturing her, and Matt gets a call from Angela's mom, worried that, hey, she hasn't come home yet. Anything else? Can you help? And he says, yeah, I'll help find her. And he calls 911. It's like, all right, he's not getting involved. He's going to call the police. And then he says, hello, 911. And he's like, F it. And walks out of the room and goes up and suits up. And we get the swinging like Daredevil is back.
Yeah. So Daredevil's on the hunt to find Angela, and he's on the hunt to find Muse. He knows where to go, and they lead into a very, very interesting back and forth battle where, he does wind up sedating Angela, and he's trying to, drain her blood at this point. Matt,
I went a little farther than I expected. Like, they actually stabbed her in the leg and was draining her blood because she's a young girl.
Like, he was actively going for it, and I appreciate the fact that they didn't shy away from it, because normally it's like, oh, you got there just in the nick of time to save the girl. No, he was actively like in the middle of trying to.
He had to save her life.
Yeah, like he had to legitimately save the girl, which, spoiler alert, he winds up doing after he kind of beats Muse-ish. Like, there's still some.
He hung him and was choking him.
It was a very brutal fight that they had, and it was a really good one. But what I love is we can come back to it, because I love the way they shot this final fight scene in the episode, because it's parallel to another thing that's going on that happens in this. So you have Wilson Fisk, who, aside from also, doing the fundraising thing where you have him trying to gain, backing from all of the big players in New York, who very clearly see him for what he is, and they know what he is and what he's about. And that's some of the conversations he's having. They're like, you're doing this to pad your own pockets. You're not doing this to help the city. You only care about yourself. And, he's still, politically answering the questions like, oh, I care about the city. Like, we have to, I'm only doing this for them. I'm not doing this for myself, which he very clearly is still trying to line his own pockets. But you finally get the establishment of his own personal anti-vigilante task force, full of all of the corrupt, cops in the city.
Yeah, I put this team together. It's every single corrupt cop.
Yeah, it's everyone with a questionable rap sheet. You get Officer Powell, who is very integral in the White Tiger storyline, as kind of one of the lead guys of the group. But you get the establishment of that task force now, which is going to obviously play out in a very interesting way in the rest of this season moving forward, as he tries to fight all of these vigilantes in the city, which I'm hoping it leads us to another neighborhood hero that could be coming in a certain fourth installment of a movie.
Batman?
But yes, Batman. And we'll see how that plays out moving forward too. But you get Fisk developing this task force, but now you see him walking down the steps with something in his hand, and he winds up back at the cell that he's holding, Adam in, which you get at the end of the last episode that we had before we, jumped into these two that dropped this week. And, he has a conversation with Adam, like he plans on eliminating this, this thread from his life, right?
While holding an axe in his hand.
Right. Very menacingly, a very large man, but in a very kind of dark and scary showing of bravado and confidence in himself. He's like, I want to make a little bit of a game out of this. Like, I know that I could beat you to a pulp with my bare hands with no problem. But he goes on this rant about, making it an even fight more or less, and winds up throwing the axe at Adam and says, hey, use this and try to stop me from killing you, kind of thing. And then like they start to fight, and I love it because it ties into the battle with Matt and Muse.
You got Matt and Muse, you got Wilson and Adam, like the jumping back and forth.
But the
was
way they
fantastic.
shot it was really cool because a lot of the beats from one fight led directly into a
Yeah.
beat of the other fight, and they're kind of dual fights happening at the same time, where, you know, Daredevil gets the upper hand on Muse and Fisk puts Adam down, obviously, but the parallels and how they shot these fights was really very well done, and kind of it was a really cool way they shot both of these fights. And you know, you get this where it looks like he's put Adam down for the count and probably killed him if he hasn't, but he's beat him up pretty severely. And then you get Matt with his victory over Muse here, which leads him to trying to stop the bleeding with Angela and bringing her kind of back because she's passed out. He hears a little bit of a faint heartbeat. And, you know, he does the whole try to give her chest compressions, but that doesn't work. So, and what do you do in movies when it happens? Wham! You just got to hit her one time, and she comes back and, you know, sees that he's Daredevil, and he's like, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, it's such a great moment at the end because she just looks at him, Daredevil? Is it you? And he's like,
Yep. It's
yeah, I'm here. Because he acknowledges, like, yep, I'm Daredevil.
Yep.
I'm back.
Yep.
It was such a great ending. Just get that little bit of line. Hey, are you Daredevil? Yeah.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, it's me.
It's me. I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's get to these.
But that was very brilliant. Like, you get primal rage screams from Matt as he's
Yeah.
fighting Muse. Like I said, he uses his staff to tie up around his neck and
Oh yeah.
just hangs
very
him.
brutal
And,
fight.
like, he would have killed Muse if it wasn't for Angela's heartbeat dropping and stuff, and he ran over. Of course, Muse gets away because he goes over because he hears Angela is fading away, and he, you know, has to save her. But it was very brutal. But I love that dynamic back and forth between Wilson's fight and Matt's fight with Muse, because it shows in some ways they were similar. They were both raging. They were both fighting in similar styles and ways of just going just all out to attack. But it shows the dynamic, like they're similar, but they're not, that, you know, there's a big difference in it. But it was just that great accumulation of, well, we see Fisk is still that dark character, and we're going potentially into more darkness, and Matt is finally going back into Daredevil.
Well, it's really fun because you see, like, the way this story has set them out is you always feel like they're on perpendicular paths, where their paths are going to cross at some point, and in a ways they are. But this season has very much been about them being on parallel paths, where they're, you know, trying to not only be something they're not, but trying to grow and trying to not be what everybody expects you to be. But at the same time, you can't fight nature and you can't fight your instincts of who you are. And it ultimately winds up showing itself because you've had Matt this entire run be so against, you know, his Daredevil half. He's trying to solve the world's problems the way Foggy would want him to, as just Matt Murdock. Like, let the system win. The system, like, trust the system. The system works for a reason. It's established for a reason. But also finding out the system is, you know, the system is flawed. It's not perfect. It's not fair in a lot of cases. And, you know, the need for Daredevil still exists, because when you have people that operate outside the system or take advantage of the system, there's other ways you have to fight that and stop that. And I think he's finally accepting that and kind of, you know, coming to terms with the fact that, you know, like, he can still do both and honor his friend at the same time, which has, I think, been his internal battle that he struggled with this entire thing. Like, he's trying to honor the memory of Foggy without having dealt with Foggy's death, really. But you kind of start to see that here, where he's back and he's praying and you know, you have the religious, you know, background that he has. And it was kind of harkens back to, you know, just the conversation that he has with the guy in the bank robber, the bank episode, where, you know, he's talking to the Irish leader of him, and he's like, oh, Murdoch, you're an Irishman. Like, you know, and he talks about stuff like, you know, like, he should be a certain way. Like, where is he from? And like him not knowing his story because he was orphaned and all that stuff. Like, you get some of those callbacks, but you get Matt on this journey now, and he's finally coming, you know, I think he's finally starting that healing journey that he's needed to be on, that he just, for whatever reason, for the year plus that it's been since Foggy died. Yeah, like him just kind of bearing that down and not really dealing with it for a year and just kind of diving into his lawyer work. But I think he's he's finally coming full circle, and it's being told really well. Like, I'm really enjoying the direction this show is going, and I'm excited for the next couple episodes that we got coming up for this season.
Yeah, these 2 episodes were quite a surprise because,
Fantastic.
episode 4, we got him with Frank, and we kind of thought, all right, we got 2 together. Maybe this is him and Punisher going out and doing some vigilante justice, but we don't even see Frank show up again. Like, we kind of know that he shows back up, so we were kind of expecting, all right, this is going to be our Punisher episodes because we got 2 together, but they were 2 similar but very different episodes because, episode 5 does have a little more humor, but it's dealing with Matt kind of coming to grips with things. He makes friends with Yusuf. He's using his other abilities, and you finally start seeing him fighting, but he's trying to hold back. You can tell he's not going full Daredevil, and episode 6 gets us full Daredevil because of just how dark and crazy music is. Like, he knows if he doesn't step in that Angela's going to die, and that gets him back. And like I said, I still love those final 5 seconds of just Angela calling him Daredevil, and he's just like, yeah, that's me.
He's back. He's in. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. Like, like now, I think with the way the story's being laid out, you're getting that Frank Castle returning with this anti-vigilante task force. Like, they're not only coming for Daredevil, they're going to be coming for Punisher too. So, like, he's going to get involved at some point. They've been kind of playing up the whole people that have kind of worshipped the Punisher, and he calls them fanboys and stuff like that. So, like, he's going to get back in the mix. Like, I'm really excited where they're going now that you get Daredevil is fully back. He's back in his suit. He's ready to go. And I'm really interested to see where they move forward in these last couple episodes, because everything we've heard about the show is, especially the last episode of the season, is just bonkers from what people are saying. And if we've gotten what we've got so far and it's about to get super crazy and like over the top, I'm excited to see where it lands, because we've been on a really fun journey. I'm really happy with the way this season has gone. You finally got him back in full Daredevil, full Daredevil suit here, and let's see where it goes, because you have what is going to be the fallout for Fisk moving forward, trying to push his agenda, versus now you got Daredevil back. Their paths are going more from parallel to perpendicular again, where there's going to be a point where their paths cross again at some point in the season, and it's going to come to a head at some point. But I'm excited to see how they get there.
Hey, we've got 3 episodes left in this season. You can watch episodes 1 through 6 right now on Disney Plus. But we've had such a good time with this season, and really liking the direction it's going. We got season 2 being filmed, but so we know the story's continuing, and we got at least 3 seasons ago. But I can't wait to see how they finish off. It kind of stinks that we've only got 3 left, because I've been enjoying it so much, especially now that it's getting into the meat of it. It's like, all right, I've got 10 more episodes to watch. 3? Okay.
Yeah, but thankfully it looks like we're going to be getting season 2 a lot sooner. So it seems like next year we're probably going to get season 2. So thankful for that. It's been an incredible run on this show so far, and I'm so glad we've got new episodes of Daredevil again to talk about. I just love this show so much.
I was really waiting in that Marvel Avengers Doomsday announcement for Charlie Cox's name to be on one of those chairs, but maybe it'll be in the second announcement.
And we'll see what happens with the end of those episodes. But you can watch all these episodes on Disney Plus right now. They're so freaking good. Come check it out and let us know what you think as we go along on this journey. But coming up next week, we do have in theaters a Minecraft movie. This is the Jack Black, Jason Momoa take on the very popular, video game that is, it's got potential to be fun. It looks corny, it looks cheesy and over the top. We'll see what kind of film we get out of it.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous. I know my kids are huge into Minecraft, so they're really looking forward to checking out this film. But we'll see kind of how adult they go with some of the jokes, or how kid-friendly they keep it.
I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar property, so, a lot of people are going to have their eyes on it. It's probably going to make a ton of money, I would imagine so. But a couple big star power, people at the top of it with Jack Black and Jason Momoa, so we'll see how they do, how it does in theaters. But also coming up on demand, we've got a film that I know you and I were interested in seeing. It's just another classic story of it not coming to our theater anywhere near, and that's Opus. So that's the Ayo Edebiri starring film. It's got John Malkovich in it as well. It's an A24 film. We love a lot of the stuff A24 has been putting out, but it's just another one that just didn't show up around us. It's dropping on April 1st.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out, but yeah, we just you saw no advertising for it. It came out and it's already coming on demand, so it's just don't know what to think about it. It's a weird state for the movie industry where so many films, it happens a lot, and it's happened for many years, but it feels like more and more films are just being dumped out there without any push behind it and just getting it on demand as quickly as they can.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one that we definitely want to check out. Another one that's coming on demand this week on April 4th is In the Lost Lands. That's the Mila Jovovich, Dave Bautista film. It's kind of a science fiction-y, a type movie that just, for another reason, just didn't make it into a theater chain around us. I know that's one you and I are both interested in checking out too.
Yeah, it looked like it'd be an interesting action film. I don't expect much from the story of it, but at least it can give me some decent action. It might be worth checking out. That'll be one I'll probably look for when it comes out on streaming.
Yeah, and then we got two shows coming out on Netflix this week. You've got Pulse, which is kind of this medical drama. It's starting, I forget her name from, she was in the Scream TV series. She was also Roscoe in Reacher. I forget her name. It's like Emma or Ella. I forget her name too. Apologies for that. So, I'm doing the Brad role this week, so I'm going to butcher the names this time and not remember them. But you also have the Devil May Cry animated series coming on Netflix. I'm excited for that one. It looks really cool. I know Evanescence, the band, did a song for this show, and that's another one that's got a lot of people hyped that's going to show up on Netflix this week.
Yeah, and of course we have potentially the very last time we'll hear Kevin Conroy in a new role, that he's got some sort of role in this. They haven't announced which character he's playing, but we'll know when we hear it.
Yeah, definitely excited to check that one out for sure.
But that'll do it for this week's episode. We can't thank you enough for all the love and support that you've shown us over the almost a year and a half that we've been doing the podcast now. On our next episode, we will be reviewing a Minecraft movie in episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again. But I'm Josh, he's Brad, and we'll see you next time.